advocate, which basically means that he puts to use his skills to share information with everybody who's interested within the Designlab platform in situations like today. He's going to share today on how to build your portfolio in Webflow. It is a follow-on webinar from the one we had 2 weeks ago. And if you missed that, let us know and we can send you a link to watch it on the different tools that you're able to use to build portfolios. The way that today is going to work, it's very much Kieran sharing with us the information that he's put together for the first part of the webinar. And once he's finished doing that, we will get into any questions that you might have and that you might want answered. To make sure that we get to your questions, have a look at the tabs on the right-hand side of your screen, and you'll see that one of them is labeled questions. So pop anything that you want to know or you want Kieran to answer into there. If you have questions that you want the participants to answer, or you just feel like saying hi and letting us know where you're from, you can put that into the chat tab. And then one last thing before we get started is you'll notice if you open up the chat that Kieran has dropped in a bunch of links in there already. Those should all be fairly useful for you as you start to have a look at how you build out your own portfolio. So make sure to grab those if you need them. And if you don't get a chance, again, just let us know and we will do our best to make sure that they get to you. Having said that, I'm now going to hand over to Kieran. And you'll see me again towards the end of the webinar once we get round to the questions again.
Perfect. Thanks, Mandy. Hey, everyone. I'm going to just dive right in because we've got a lot to go through and not much time. So let's first go to Webflow. And I'm just going to, so what Webflow is, just a quick like overview. It's a tool very similar to like Squarespace and like other sites that you might have been aware of in terms of creating your website online. But it also has a pretty interesting twist in that it resembles a lot like Sketch or Figma in that it has a lot of the same sort of tools that you can sort of see, and it's a visual sort of like editor rather than using something like code to create your thing. But it's a lot more customizable. You may have heard of like Dreamweaver. That's very much like a visual editor for websites. But I find that this takes it to the next level. So yeah, let's dive in. So first of all, you're going to want to create an account. The accounts are free. There are limitations to free accounts, but you'll sort of see those as you go to design things. It's things like doing the. Let me just make sure my sounds aren't on. Sorry, just so that I don't keep getting that pop-up sound. I don't know how to do that. I think that's mute my notification sounds. All right, perfect. Yeah, so what Webflow does is, yeah, let's log in and let's show you what we're going to be creating today. So obviously, if you sign up, like I was saying, you're going to have a few different limitations as to what you can and can't do. One of those is how many pages you can create at any one time, but it definitely gives you enough to go ahead and create something. And hopefully I haven't forgotten my password. Perfect. Not right now. Okay, so I want to sort of show you like a sort of like a Martha Stewart kind of style in that, like, here's one I prepared earlier. So this is actually my live website. The way that I created this was I actually bought a template that one of the people from like the Designlab, not the Designlab, sorry, the Webflow community has created. I think it was roughly about $30, something like that. And I was able to use my content and put this inside of there and do what I needed to do for that. So as you can sort of see, like I've got a few bits and pieces that I have created, like the latest work that I've got, as well as some testimonials. And then if you click into one of the pages, like the projects template, you can sort of see that I do have like some content about that in there. So we'll go ahead and sort of like take a step back further and sort of show you what we're going to be creating today. It's not going to be as polished as this because again, we only have so much time. So let me go back to the dashboard and I'll explain how to navigate Webflow a little bit in a minute as well. So this is closer to what we're going to create today. So this is like just a very, very basic website that works in responsive and all that kind of stuff. It has linked different projects in there and has access to a few different things like a contact form. Again, as you can sort of see, this isn't the most pretty thing, but what I'm trying to show you here is the concepts of Webflow so that you can sort of see what Webflow is capable of to get your portfolio created really, really quickly. All right, so let's jump into how you would go about creating your own. So let's go back to the dashboard. So what you would do if you're brand new starting at this, you get presented with a screen like this, but obviously it'd be a bit blank. And all you'd have to do is go to new project up the top. Once you've signed in, created an account and all that kind of stuff, it will get you to a page that looks like this. And then you hit new project. As I'm reaching the outer limits of my current plan, it's not going to let me do this, but that's all right. So as you can sort of see, you can start off with a blank site. So everything is completely blank. There's no styles, there's no templates. It's just a white page. That's really good if you know what you're doing and you want to sort of really sort of like go custom, like complete custom. Then they do have some portfolios here that you can then use, some templates that you can use that are Webflow templates. So you can start off with something like a portfolio starter or a business starter or a store starter and do that. Or you can do what I did, which I bought a $34 US template that I then customized and like changed a whole bunch of different things inside of that and created my own little bits and pieces from that. If you go to some resources, you've got some templates here, and they've got heaps and heaps and heaps in there. So you can sort of like go through this. There's free ones, as you can sort of see here. There's free ones, there's expensive ones, there's all kinds to get you started. It really depends on if there's like built-in animations, CMS, e-commerce, like whatever it might be. So we'll go through all of those in a minute as well, if you're a little bit confused as to what those things are. So yeah, so that's what you would sort of do. So in this case, like I've already got a project open, so I'm just going to edit an existing one. So I'm actually just going to edit Kieran's Radical project. And what that is going to do is going to bring up all the content that I've already put in there. I'm going to essentially wipe the slate clean, except for a few like assets and a few different things. So I don't have to bore you with that. Like nobody wants to watch an image upload. So I'm going to essentially start from scratch and show you how I'd build up a page that resembles something like this and connects up to CMS, and I'll explain what a CMS is and also the contact us form. So I'm going to click out of that. All right, so let me do a quick tour around Webflow and sort of like show you what all of these like things are around the screen. So not so much the actual canvas, but all the stuff around the side. So as you can sort of see, there's like a little menu here where the little Webflow logo is. When I hover over it, it turns into a menu. This gives you quick access to go back to the dashboard, go to the project settings. So if you go to the project settings, that's all the stuff where you go to like change your hosting plan, like add in fonts, like do your payments and all that kind of stuff. So that's all the sort of like back-end settings that you would need to play around with. But let's go back into that. But today we're going to be focusing on mainly these items here and mainly what's over here and a little bit of what's up here. So The very first one is adding an item. So the cool thing about Webflow is that it already comes preloaded with a whole bunch of elements, very similar to what Squarespace has and a few others out there. You can build something from scratch. So you can sort of like build out a section with a container or a grid. Or if you scroll down even further, there are some components that are already created. So these are sort of like things that you might use quite a bit. So something like a lightbox gallery, you definitely will be using that like in a portfolio setting. Something like a nav bar, like this is the default nav bar. Like I haven't like really changed that. I just added my own little image up there. And then, then you've also got the ability to add a symbol or create a symbol. So this works very similar to if you're familiar with Sketch or Figma. So in Sketch, it's called symbols. In Figma, it's called components. But it works very much the same way. You can grab something that you've created here, and then you can hit the little plus and then go to symbols and then create a new symbol based off of this thing. So if you were to use this across multiple pages, you just change it once and it changes it everywhere. Makes it super, super easy for web dev for this kind of thing. So that I've actually made the nav bar in that, but I'll show you how I do that later on in the video to go through that. Then the next one down is the navigator. So think of this as maybe like your layers list in Sketch or Figma. This is like a really great way for you to like have a running list of all your layers. And just like in Sketch or Figma, when you use a symbol or a component, like it collapses like down into one single item. And then if you double click into it, it then expands out. So as you can sort of see, it goes into like an isolation mode, and then you're able to then edit it. And then those edits then save across all the times that you use it. All right. And then, yeah, as you can sort of see, as you go down the page, you can also see that there's all this kind of stuff. So if you select on the canvas, it will highlight on the layers list, just like you would expect, and then and vice versa. So if you select on the layers list, it'll select on the canvas. Then we've got pages. So yeah, pages are pretty straightforward. They're just as they sound. You've got a page that you're creating, and then you've also got these collection pages, which we'll go into a little bit later. And then utility pages, which are like pages that are there by default. So these are pages where maybe you got maybe you want to have a password protection, or maybe someone typed in the wrong URL when they were looking for your website. You want to sort of like spice that up, so it's not just like a boring 404 page not found like this. You can sort of add like a little go back to home, or something like, whoops, I'm sorry about that, and then send them back home. So yeah, so this is where you would go in and switch between pages as you edit them, as well as any sort of settings that you may have inside of here. So this is really important for like SEO and titles and all that kind of stuff. So you can edit all of this sort of stuff in there, which is really, really great. Cool. All right, so then we move on to the CMS. So what a CMS is, CMS stands for Content Management System. So it's a system that manages your content. Pretty straightforward. So what this is a collection, is exactly as it sounds. It's a collection of items. So if you look at this, we have a collection of projects. So if we click into this, I have a capstone 1, 2, and 3. And in each one of these capstones, I then have a whole bunch of details that I can create. So this is going to be really great, because this is like the basis of our whole portfolio. So everything that we create is able to be detached. So what I mean by that is your content and your design isn't one and the same. It's actually detached. So what you're doing is you're designing it, but then you're attaching the content to that design. So what that means is if I go to close this out and I go to the projects template page, I have a design that I've created. isn't it pretty? It's so great. Then I can actually switch between capstone 1 and 2 and 3, and the design stays the same all the way through, but the information changes. So this allows me to create a portfolio in no time at all. So this is like really like the biggest advantage that Webflow has over like Squarespace or Wix or anything like that. Like they don't really have this kind of functionality in there. We're not going to talk about e-commerce today, but as you can sort of see, that is available to you. You can create an e-commerce store, like very similar to like Shopify. Then we've got, lucky last, we've got our assets. So this is where you would add any sort of images or videos or anything like that. So you simply just click on upload, and then you upload anything that you might want to like upload from there. So I've uploaded a few images there just to get me started and not watch paint dry. And then the last one is our settings. Our settings here is just really searching for a few things and some backups. So as you create things, you don't have to like go back and try and recreate something. You can actually go back to 8:30 last night when I was putting the final touches on this, and making sure that this isn't like I broke something early in the morning and then I want to sort of like change that. So it allows me to revert back to that backup, which is really, really handy. And yeah, if you want to restore even older backups, you do have to upgrade. But I mean, it stores up to about 20, I think, by default, which is pretty cool. Cool. All right, so then we've got down the left-hand side here. These are just different like ways of viewing the canvas. So in this case, we've got hide element edges. So that just like makes it a little bit easier to see what's going on. Same with hide empty elements. Same with show the guide overlay and stuff like that. We've also got enable X-ray mode. So that allows me to see things a little bit more clearly. And also any sort of like search in there, and then tutorials, video tutorials, and then the help section down the bottom there. We also have a quick preview. So this is like what it'll actually look like on the site. I tend not to use this very often because I find sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. I actually just publish it and then like open up the actual web, the published web version of it. But yeah, then across here, then we've got, this is also what sets it apart, what sets everything apart from what it is that we go through this and we've got the desktop, we've got tablet, we've got mobile landscape, and then we've got mobile portrait. So I'm able to make edits to all of these. And as I go through it, it makes it really, really easy for me to make edits to just that breakpoint, so that like I can make it truly custom in that way. All right, and then we've got our publish buttons, we've got some undo, redo, so on and so forth. And then we have our styles here. So as I click on this, very similar again to Sketch and Figma, as you click on something over on the left inside of the canvas, this changes as well. So this might look scary at the moment, but if you think about it, it's actually very similar to Sketch and Figma in terms of like what is available to you. The only difference is that they're all open by default, showing all the time. So that's just something to be aware of. Looks scary, but it actually isn't that scary. And then we've got element settings. So again, if I click on something, we've got these little element settings. So what this does is this, each element will have its own set of like more functional settings. And this is like a really great way for you to sort of like show that sort of stuff up. And then we've also got the style manager, which we won't really get into, and interactions, which is also really cool, but I think we'll need to do a separate webinar just on that. All right, so let's actually get started. Like we're already 20 minutes in, and like I said, there's a lot to still go over. So let's go to create our nav bar. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to delete this nav bar. And I'm also going to go back to the home page and just sort of like show what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly just delete everything. And just start from scratch. So you can sort of see how I would create something like this. So the very first thing that I would do is just start adding elements, which is really, really easy. So you just click on the little plus symbol. I then want to add a nav bar. So I can just scroll all the way down. I know that it's a component already. So I just simply click a nav bar. So I've got a nav bar ready to go. I can then, what I'm going to do is I'm then going to create this into a symbol because I know that I'm going to reuse this everywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it. So have it selected here, press the little plus and then hit symbols. You can, there also is a, I'm actually going to delete this one because I need to, sorry, first I need to go to the projects template. Okay, that's removed there. I'm also going to remove it from the about section. That's why it's not letting me delete it first. So let's delete that one. And so let's go back to the home page. I should be able to delete that symbol now. Yep, perfect. And go edit and delete that one. All right. So now that I've got this nav bar selected, you can actually go to the symbols and then there is a shortcut to create one, which is Command-Shift-A. And then if you're using Windows, I'm sure it would be Control-Shift-A for that. So I can then hit Create New Symbol. I'm going to name it Navbar, nice and simple, and create that as a symbol. So if I was to then add this to any other page, it would all be the same no matter what I do. So I'm going to double click into this. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my styles over on the right-hand side. And I'm just going to change this to white. So as we can sort of see, I've got the nav bar selected, and then I've got a background, and its color right now is triple D. I'm just going to simply change that to white, so it's nice and blends in. I'm also going to double click into it and see that there is supposed to be a brand in here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add my image. So if I go over to my assets, over on this left-hand side here, I can simply add this guy in and drag him into here. So obviously that's quite big, and we'll have to change some of those properties, but we just wanted to get it in there first and foremost. So I've already done this, so I already know how big I should make this. It should be around 32 by 32. So I'm going to quickly do that. So that's just simply coming to the width tool, going 32, 32, and then we've got it perfect here. I'm then going to change this to a different display mode. And what we'll do is we'll go through that in a completely different tutorial because that's a whole nother tutorial in itself. But what I'm trying to show you here is that you can really create something really, really easy without much effort at all. So right there and then I've got my homepage ready to go, my navbar ready to go that I can then use across all my other pages. I'm also going to, while I've got the navbar open, I'm going to make sure that all of these links work. So what I can do here is this little brand here, I'm going to actually make it go to a specific page, which I'm going to make it go to home. And then for this home link as well, I'm also going to make that go to home. And then for this about link, I'm also going to make this go to about. Contact, what we're going to do is we're actually going to put this on a specific page. So this is going to be on the home page, but in a section of the home page. So to do that, it's actually quite easy. All you have to do is go / and then #contact. And I'll show you why that's an important thing. What this is doing is this is going to, because it's got the / there, it's going to go to the root page. And then the hash is saying go to the ID of contact. So we haven't set up the ID just yet, but we will very, very soon. So that's our really, really basic nav bar. So as we can sort of see, it works in mobile responsive, really, really great as we're doing that. Okay, so the next one is the intro. So this I'm going to put in a section. So a section is just a bit of content that is 100% wide. So it makes it really easy for me to add something in. And then I'm going to put a container inside of that. So as we can sort of see, there's a section and then there's a container. And then we're also going to add a grid inside of that. So my grid that I'm going to put in there right now, it's showing as like a 2-column and 2-row grid, which means I actually don't want to do that. I just want to do 1 row and 2 columns because we had some text on the left-hand side and then we had an image on the right-hand side. So I'm going to simply delete that row. And then I'm going to start putting in some content in here. So I'm going to put in an image. So I'm actually going to go to my assets and drag this in. So I can put that inside of the grid. As you can sort of see, now it's actually noticed that like it's going to start putting some stuff inside the grid. I'll place it over here in a second. But what I'm going to do first is also add a heading to say, hey, I'm Kieran Black. And I'm also going to add in some paragraph text to put in there. But as you can sort of see, what it started to do is go, oh, those are like 3 different items. Like maybe you want them as 3 separate things. I actually don't in this case. What I want is the heading 1 and the paragraph to be in the same box. So to do that, you do have to create another box to put the heading and the paragraph inside of. So let's just flip that around. Perfect. And then the order here is important. So because the image is before the div, what that is doing is that's saying like, show this one first. So I simply want to switch that around. And then I've got my div block. What I'm going to do is I'm going to align that to the center. And then there we go. We've got our section that we had previously. I've got this grid here as well. I'm going to edit the grid settings and then change the gap between those to maybe something like 48. I like to do everything in multiples of 4. And then I'm done here. So now we've got our basic template for that part there. The next part is to get into a little bit about the CMS. So the CMS in this case, what we're going to be doing is I've already actually created the collection. So I'm not going to go through that. But what I'll do like a quick like run up to what I actually did. So what I would have done is I would have created a new collection. I actually used these templates that you can like base them off and start that off. But essentially, these are the fields that you're going to fill out. So think of this as almost like a Google spreadsheet that you want for people to fill out. So what I had in mind is that I had a title, an image, and then the body content and like the role that I played, the challenge of it all, the client that I worked for, conclusion, literally everything that I wanted, but I added them as separate fields. So it made it really easy for me to do that. And then I created the collection. And then I started putting that information in. So I then started saying capstone 1, capstone 2, capstone 3, and drag and dropping in a whole bunch of images. Again, didn't want to watch, make you watch paint dry. But yeah, there's a little bit of content stuff that you have to do to get that going. And then that essentially created these projects. So as you can sort of see, I've got a name. A slug is just the URL. So it usually, so as you change this, it usually changes the slug for you. So you dynamically change that. Then I've got an intro. I've got a main project image. I've got a client, my role, the tools that I used, project details in there. And then I've got the conclusion in there. So this is like a very like basic portfolio, but you can then obviously add more and more fields onto it as you need. Cool. So let's actually create like the grid on the homepage to actually grab some of these details and put it on the homepage, which is really, really cool. So let's do that. So again, I'm going to create another section, and then inside of that section, create a container. And then inside of that container, I'm going to add another grid. So those three things like can come like with it. Sort of like think of it as like a basic template for anything that you go to create, because it's really easy to do. So in this case, we can sort of see that there are going to be 2 rows again and 2 columns. I actually want 3 columns, so I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to add another column, and then I'm going to actually remove. Oh, sorry, I actually did this the wrong way around. Let me delete this grid. So let me delete this grid. What I want to do actually is go to this little plus here, and I want to add in a collection list. So this collection list is essentially like the CMS collection that we just created, but I want to grab certain details from that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the collection, go to like it says there's a little source here. And so what it's saying is like, which collection do you want to use? Because I may have multiple collections. In one of my projects, I have like 7 collections that I use to create the website. So I can then hit projects, and then that starts to like create what I need. So then I can do that. And what I then have inside of this is I have the collection list wrapper. So what this means is this is the container that holds all the 3 different capstones. And then I also have a collection list. So this is just the list of the items. And then I have the collection item itself. So the collection item itself, I want to edit, as well as the collection list. So the collection list in this case, I actually want to change that into a grid. So this is where I would use that grid that I was going to create, but mistakenly did. And let's do that. So I just clicked on the little grid symbol there. I'm going to add a column, and then I'm going to remove the rows so that it doesn't show up. So as you can sort of see, I actually have capstone 1, capstone 2, capstone 3, because it knows like that I want to link to that. Like it knows the projects that I want to link to. So capstone 1, 2, and 3, and it started populating that. If I had more, the list would go down the page, and I can also filter and do some stuff for there. But now what I want to do is I want to create another, I want to actually create an image and then the heading of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a link. So a link block. So this link block is essentially going to be a way to actually click into the capstone. So anything that you want to do as a button or anything like that, use a link block. There is actually a button component, but anything that you want to use as an interaction between pages, like use this link block. This little purple thing here is, and as you can sort of see here, it's also being used as purple. These purple things are allowing us to create a, like using something that is connected to the CMS. So if I click on that, it actually says like, what do you want to use? So in this case, I actually want to use the current project as the link. So that'll go to that current project. So if I'm on capstone 1, if I'm about to click on capstone 1, it will go to capstone 1. So that's what that current project means. And then inside of this link block, I also want to create this into a grid. So just so that everything makes it really, really easy for me to create. So I'm going to click on this grid. I just want to have a very basic image, then text underneath it. So I just want to have a column with 2 rows. So I'm going to do that. So 1 column, and so that's 1. And then we've got 2 rows here, and then we can hit done. And then what we can do is we can add in an image. This allows us to create like that capstone thing in there. But again, because it's inside of a CMS collection, it knows that like, hey, maybe you want to use the image from the projects, which I definitely do. So I want to click on get image from projects, and then I can select the field and then say main project image. So what that has now done is that it says, oh, there's a main project image for each one of these. I'm going to grab that for each one and then populate that, which is perfect, which is exactly what I want. The next thing that I'm going to do inside of this link block is then do the heading, the title of each one. So I'm going to actually add a heading and put that in. I don't want it to be that big. Maybe you want a H3 or H4, somewhere around there. Maybe H4. Let's go with that. And then we want to go get text from projects, and then we can select that field, and then it's getting cut off here, but you can sort of see that we want to choose the name of the project. So I can click on that. And as you can sort of see, now we actually have capstone 1, 2, and 3 ready to go. So yeah, that's a really quick way to create your capstone projects in here. So if I publish this, let's go publish, and let's open this up in a new tab. We can sort of see that we have this capstone 1, 2, and 3. When I click on this, it'll go to a 404 page. Oh, no, it won't, sorry, because I've actually created it already. But what it'll do is it'll go to that page, whatever I've clicked on. So if I go back to there and I go to capstone 2, it's there, go back again, and then capstone 3, it'll go to capstone 3. So with pretty much minimal effort, we've created a thing that like generates itself. So if I was to add another capstone, it would auto generate capstone 4, right? And I wouldn't have to touch anything. So long as I filled out all of those fields, I filled out the name of it, and I filled out the image, it would create this for me, which is really, really cool. So this is really great if you're lazy like me and you want to just create something once and then you just want to add stuff to it as you go along. Cool. So I won't bother like styling any of this because you can go in here. I can just quickly show you how you can style it, but you can just go in here and add some padding and stuff like that. So you might do like 32 above and below, and just like give everything a little bit of space on here as well. So 32 and 32, and you can start to give everything a little bit more breathing room and so on. So the lucky last part that we want to create on this page, and we're running out of time, so I've got to go a little bit faster, is we also want to add in a contact form. So, well, before we do that, let's actually show you how we would create that project template, because I think that one's actually a little bit more important than the contact form. So, as you created that collection, if you go into pages, you'll notice that there's actually now a new CMS collection page. So that gets auto-generated at each time that you create a collection. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete everything on the page and start from scratch. So what we can actually do is we can use our symbol. So we can use our navbar symbol, and we've got that there. We can then add in a section, which then has a container in it, which then also will have the heading of it, so the name of the project. So I'm going to put that in there. And again, I'm going to just quickly like choose the thing that I want. So name, so capstone 3. And then I'm also going to add in to the container, I'm going to add in a paragraph. This is going to be linked to our intro text. So we can put that in there. Perfect. Then I'm going to add in an image. So put in an image, get the image from the CMS main project image. So as you can sort of see, because I've put in the hard work of creating that CMS and doing that, it actually becomes like almost like building blocks. It's really, really easy to create what I need to create. Then I'm going to add in another section inside of here. So I'm going to go section. Let's go to body. Let's go create a section. Then create a container. then inside of that container, I'm going to put a grid to do that here. What I want to do here is I actually want to remove the row. So I want to have 1 row by 3 columns. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to add in a div, which is then going to have some content inside of it. So this content is going to be a heading. And then it also is going to be some basic text. So this heading, I'm going to just change this to client. I'm also not going to make it an H1. I'm going to make it like an H5. And then I'm going to actually like set this settings to get this text to the client. So that allows me to get A1 company PTY Ltd. And then I'm going to duplicate this. So I'm going to hit Command C and then Command V and do that 2 more times to get us the 3 across. And what I'm going to change this to is my role. And then I think let's change this to my role. And then I also want to change this client to tools. So I'm going to double click into that and tools, and then change this one to tools. So right now I can't actually scroll. It's actually that one down there. But if you can't see it for whatever reason, if it's doing something like it's doing to me, you can just go over to the settings on the right-hand side and do the same thing. So you get a little bit more room to play with and go to tools. So yeah, so there we have it. So we have like a nice sort of like layout for this. And then I'm actually just going to like duplicate this top one. So I'm just going to copy this and paste that and then move it down. So now we've got capstone 3, capstone 3. So I actually want to move this second one underneath this one. And I want to link this. I just want to delete this so I didn't have to create that container. And then I want to add the rich text in, which is like the main body content of our project. So the project details, and paste that in. And then lucky last is, again, I want to do, I want to copy and paste this, this capstone and then have this underneath. And then I'm going to delete that one. And then I'm just going to change this to conclusion. So I'm going to untick that because I just want it to be basic text and say conclusion. Wow, I cannot spell today. Conclusion. There we go. And then we want to change the paragraph. Instead of the intro, we want to set it to the conclusion. And there we have it. So really, really quickly, I've then created, again, like you would style it and you would do all that kind of stuff as you wish and go from there. So as you can sort of see over on the left-hand side here, we can actually switch between capstone 1, capstone 2, and capstone 3 to sort of like show all the different ways that this would show up all the different body content and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's how you'd create a project template. Let's go back to the homepage and add this in. So I want to create the contact form really, really quickly. So again, I'm going to add in to the body. I want to add a section, add a container, and then I want to also add a contact form, which I can then put in there. So this form block will do nicely. You can play around with all the settings. I'm not going to do that, but there are plenty of tutorials online on how to get that set up. Webflow has plenty of really great articles to go through and videos as well. They don't just do written articles, which is nice. Yeah, so then so I've got my little contact form here. And then the lucky last page, oh, sorry. I also want to give this an ID of contact, right? So in my little settings icon here, I can actually go to a specific section of the page. So I might want to say, go to the form block or go to the section or go wherever. So in this case, I want to go straight to the form block and I can type in contact. So this is what I was talking about before when I said it goes to the ID of contact. That's what it's creating there. So we've got that there, and that allows us to go straight to it. So when I hit publish and then wait for it to do its thing, I can then go to Kieran's Radical Project, go back to the homepage because I forgot to refresh that. So when I click on contact, it actually just scrolls down to that. And because it's reaching the end of the page, it's not scrolling down any further. So that's the only problem there. So yeah, so you can do that from any page. So if I was on the About page, I can then do that, except there's no nav bar. So I'll quickly recreate that and do that. So let me just delete this and delete all of this. So we've got our body. We can add our symbols. We can add a nav bar. And then we can add, again, a section, container, and then add an image inside of that. So in this case, I'm not using a CMS. I'm just using a basic image that I've uploaded. So I've got this one with me and my wife at Universal Studios. And I want to sort of set a specific height for that. So I might want to say that I don't want it to, I want it to be 100% width. So it's always going to be as wide as it possibly can be within the container. But then I also want to set a max height of 600. But I do want to change it to cover. So then that way it doesn't stretch and skew and do all that gross stuff. So yeah, so then I can then create and add my sections of content. Sorry, let's go section, container, and then I can add in my heading, which is about me. And then I can also add in some paragraph text. And then I might do that a few times to talk a little bit about like who I am and what I do. I'm also just going to set like this as a text container, which I've already defined, which allows me to make it a little bit skinnier and do that. So it makes it really, really easy for me to create what I need to create. So again, go to publish that selected domains, and then I can do that really, really easily. Come to here, refresh this, and see my changes. So I can click on contact, and then that goes to my contact page. Great. I can go about, home, about, and then I can go back to home and then see my projects. That has all of the stuff inside of it. I can then go to contact there as well, and everything is linked up, which is really, really nice. So, so we've done the contact page, we've done the home page. The last thing that I want to touch on, and we're 3 minutes over, so forgive me, is the responsive edits. So this is, again, like one of those things that sets Webflow apart from Squarespace and any of the others, is that when you go to, let's go to the home page first, because I think that'll be the most noticeable. I mean, this one is pretty basic, right? Like there's not much going on. But when you go to desktop, like that's all fine. But when you go to tablet, yep, everything's still fine. You can sort of like pull in and sort of like go, okay, this is the tablet sort of size. I can sort of see everything is still working. But when we get to this this mobile landscape, everything gets a little bit funky, right? I mean, the sizing of this is still fine. Like I can still deal with that, but it's right up against the left-hand side here and the right-hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this padding to 24 on the left-hand side and 24 on the right-hand side. I'm going to do the same thing for the section 3 and do 24 and 24. And then the same with that last one here, this section here, and go 24 and 24. And what that'll allow me to do is have this nice spacing all the way down. But then what I'll notice is, so that works from desktop to tablet to mobile landscape. Now, the last one is mobile portrait. So obviously I don't want that to happen because that looks a bit silly. So what I want to do is, this is a really cool part, is that you can actually edit the grid on different breakpoints. So right now we've got a 2 column. So we've got 1, 2, and 1 row. What we actually want to do is we want to flip that. So we want to have 1 column, but with 2 rows. So our text appears above and our image appears below. So that makes it really, really flexible design all the way through. So what we can do there is we can edit that grid. So instead of having one column here, what I'm going to do is I'm simply just going to delete that. And then it automatically does it for me, which is great. I can then also set the max height of this and all that kind of stuff. So I might want to say like 320 or something like that, and set my width to 100%. And then also set it to cover rather than that. So then it's, I can also like place it in terms of make it a little like align to the top because it's a top heavy image. And there we go. So that's the way I'd sort of do that for that section. And then I would also do the same sort of thing for this section. So I've got this grid that I want to use. So I can click into this and I want to edit the overall grid. So instead of like 1, 2, 3 across, I simply just want to do a column with 3 rows. So to do that, I edit that grid. I simply delete the columns. I mean, you could also have 2 like this, but I find it always weird when it's just an empty one there. So like I'm just going to delete it. So there's just 1 all the way down. And there we go. So what this really helps us do is create our responsive layout really, really quickly. And then on our last breakpoint, we've got this here. So again, you would do that on all the other pages. I'm not going to do that because we've run out of time. But yeah, overall, that's how I would create a portfolio in Webflow. I know this was like a super, super fast crash course. But what I wanted to do is show like what we can do and how we can do it. In, like I said, this was like this is 52 minutes going by the clock, and I've created a portfolio, like the basic outline of a portfolio ready to go. So like I do have the unfair advantage of I've used this before, but like I said, go to the links in the comment section, in the chat section at the top. There's a whole bunch of stuff of like the Webflow 101 crash course. Then there's the stuff around CMS and like introducing you to it, as well as the stuff about CSS Grid. So if you wanted to learn a little bit more about how I was doing all that grid stuff, that's a really good crash course in that as well. But yeah, I think that's it from me. And now we'll go to questions.
Awesome. Kieran, thank you so much. That was really great. We don't have too much time left, so I'm going to start with the questions that have the most upvotes. We probably won't get around to all questions, but if you're still listening and your question doesn't get answered, please make sure to either write into us and we can help you, or to ask your mentor in your next session. Okay, so the first question came in from Catherine, and it is, are there any templates that you would recommend or that work well with case studies?
Yeah, so the one that I used, which I can also link in the description, is like I would sort of go to the Webflow templates page, and then go to anything that is like, you can type in like portfolio and filter by that. And you can also filter by CMS. So I'm just going to do that myself. So let's go CMS and then portfolio, and then I'll link that in the chat as well. That has a CMS associated to it. Nope, it doesn't want me to, it doesn't let me do both. So there are ones that if you go to this link here, so let me copy and paste that in and paste that there. That was that allows you to do what you like go to the templates and look there first. Like look, oh sorry, I typed in templates rather than portfolio. Sorry, that was my stupid fault. Ignore that previous one. Go to that one. That one makes a little bit more sense. I'm going to delete that other message so people don't get confused. And then look, there's like a little badge when you hover over each one. When you hover over each one, there's like a little purple CMS icon. So it sort of looks like 3 discs stacked on top of each other. So you can sort of see like that's the kind of ones that I would look for. So I particularly use this one that's called Craig, because the guy's name is Craig. So you can sort of see that in the thing that they chose. So there you go. So that's the one that I personally used, and then I customized that based on that. So if you're looking for a quick win with Webflow and just to get your feet wet, like I would sort of like use that, and it would definitely save you a lot more time creating your own. But hopefully that video gave you enough to go over the template or create your own, whichever way you choose to go.
Thank you. The next question is it easier to build other pages first than creating your homepage so that you can quickly link images, name pages, etc.?
In this case, no, because like this is like really made based on the CMS. So the content is driving the rest of the site. So because I create the CMS first, or the homepage and the CMS first, I was then able to create the rest of the pages based on like one template and one set of data. So like, of course, like you can play around with that and see and try both ways, see which one's faster for you, because everybody's going to be different. But that's personally how my brain works, is that like I just created the homepage and thought about like, what do I need on there? Okay, I need a list of all my projects on there. And what do I like? How do I get that list of projects? That list of projects is through the CMS. So I need the CMS first. So I need to create the CMS collection first. So I would sort of like create the CMS collection, then the homepage, then the grid items on the homepage, then the actual template for the grid. Sorry, for the CMS collection items. But like I said, everybody's different. You can do whatever you want there.
Awesome. I think that answered the next question too, about when to create a CMS collection. So we'll move on to the one after that, which is, are you able to export your project's code, like the CSS, the HTML, JavaScript, etc.?
Yeah, you can. You do have to pay for that though. There is an upgrade tier. So let me just quickly screen share for 2 seconds. So yeah, let's just go the application window. Oh, it's not going to let me. It's going to freeze up. Let's go to the Chrome tab, or let's go to your entire screen. Sure. It's going to do that weird inception thing. But yeah, so if you go to, like, say you've got this, you can go to export code up the top right. They make it pretty easy. But as you can sort of see, like the upgrade your account plan to export your code, it does that. So exports, another thing to note is exports don't include your CMS exports. So you would have to export those separately. So what it would do is it would export just the page template. It wouldn't export all the 3 different variations of that template, if that makes sense. So yeah, you definitely can. You just have to upgrade your plan to do that. And it gives you a pretty good guide on how to do that right there.
So I think we've got time for 2 more quick questions. The first one is, does Webflow let you password protect certain projects?
Yes, you can. I think there is a limitation that you can't password protect CMS stuff, which is a little bit annoying. But yeah, like if you're going to password protect something, make sure that it's not inside of the CMS sort of structure. So you can just create a bespoke like template that you can then password protect. So usually this happens like when you have to sign an NDA to say like, oh, I'm not going to talk about this outside of this company. So I would almost make that its own separate thing anyway. So because the template itself might be limited as well. Like you might actually talk about it in a different way than you would the rest of your projects. So it kind of makes sense that you wouldn't want to do it inside of the CMS. So yeah, that's the only limitation that I found with my other students, is that the CMS doesn't allow you to create password protected things inside of it.
Thanks, Kieran. And then our last question for today is what plan are you using right now?
Right now, like I'm just using the CMS hosting, so it's not the basic one; it's the one up from that. So I think the basic one is like $12 a month. Don't quote me on that. And then the I think the one next up is $16 a month. So it's not that much of a difference, but it can be for some people.
Perfect, Kieran. Thank you again so much. And thank you to all of you for attending. We were delighted that you could join us. If you do have unanswered questions, like I said, please just drop us a line so we can answer them for you. You're also welcome to ask them on the Designlab Slack channel if you're a member, or to ask your mentor next time you chat. One of the things that we would love to hear from you, just quickly before you log off, is if you drop into the chat any topics that you would like us to cover in future webinars. So what do you want to hear from Kieran next? If you pop that into chat before you disappear, then we'll make sure to pick those up and start to schedule all the popular ones over the next few weeks. But thank you and enjoy the rest of your days.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. See you later.